too than the robot. If I was just looking at like a 5-year time horizon, cost of these things, and Amazon is, because they're a merchant, they're so good at this. They're the ones who can deal with the scale issue to bring the cost down. So I think it's a really important thing.
Now transitioning to a live stream. If you hear silence at the end of the stream, please refresh this page.
With my friend Charles Lee, and he's going to ask me to share what emerging tech trends I'm most excited about. I'm on mute, and I'm going to unmute and talk. All right, well, emerging tech trends I'm most excited about. I wrote a white paper recently called Decentralized Voice Tech Will Disrupt Centralized Interfaces. So I'm excited about everything you guys are talking about, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, NLP, NLU, conversational AI, everything around the AI space. The idea of flying cars and tunnels that will suck my car from one place to another, or space exploration, like all these different things. And Travis has definitely hit the nail on the head. All of the struggles I've had as a 7-time entrepreneur are because of lack of cash flow. You know, when you keep building, but you don't find that right spot and people willing to give you their money. Nevertheless, I'll come back to my 2 main trends. One is voice tech. I think that we went from 10 fingers on a keyboard to 2 thumbs on a piece of glass. And I think that the primary interface of the future will be our voice. And whether we're talking to Alexa or Siri or Assistant, or we create our own voice interface. And I do think that that's the most human way to interact with technology. And so I would say that voice tech is the emerging tech trend that's best for humans. The other tech trend that I feel very strongly about is decentralized ledger technology. So we see this in DeFi with cryptocurrency. We're seeing some new things play out with smart contracts around supply chain management, which is revolutionary. We also see smart contracts playing a big role for artists and video games with what are called NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, these one-of-one crypto collectibles of sorts. We're playing in that space, creating NFTs for every single broadcast that goes through our software. So imagine this Clubhouse room. If all of us were using our software, every word that Brian, Keith, and Travis said would be transcribed for them, recorded for them, broadcast to their specific channels, like YouTube channels or Alexa channel. We'd build a skill for them or whatnot automatically. And then they would have proof of their intellectual property, because we'd put that token of the transcription, the audio file, on the Ethereum blockchain. So that to me is a huge emerging tech trend. Leveraging voice tech for the human interface and leveraging decentralized technology as the foundation of what's being built with artificial intelligence and all things that are coming. So that is my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear what Terry has to say.
Oh, Ian, you said everything I was going to say. Pretty much, if I just expand on one of the concepts that I'm really excited about for the emerging, and I'll say again, I feel like kind of like, the shiny object, the squirrel chasing after the shiny object, and I hear Brian talk about AI, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then Keith Jones, oh yeah, that's cool. And then the business models and the contracts, and then the tech of the contact lens, and oh, that's so cool. Particularly the contact lens, because from a healthcare perspective, that's really cool. But what I want to say is, again, I think voice is a huge trend. And just to expand a little bit on what Ian was saying, if you think about how operating systems have evolved, we see a change in operating systems approximately every decade. And if you go back a number of decades, I'll age myself here. I remember playing with my first personal computer, and it was a Tandy computer from Radio Shack, and the operating system was MS-DOS. Right? We put in those 5 1/4 inch floppy disks, booted up the computer, and the way you interfaced with the computer was through a keyboard only. Right? There wasn't a graphical user interface at that point. So it was a keyboard. Approximately 10 years later, MS Windows came out, and now we had a mouse, and it was a little bit more intuitive. Approximately 10 years later, that's when Steve Jobs got up on stage and introduced the iPhone. And so now we have a touchscreen, as Ian was saying, right, with you using your thumbs and you're pinching and tapping and zooming and swiping and all that bit. And here we are now, approximately a decade later. And because of the advances in AI, machine learning, NLP, NLU, and all the things that Ian was mentioning, we can talk to computers with our voice. And so what does that mean? Well, I think it's actually a big paradigm shift. In the past, whenever we interfaced with a computer, it had to be through a piece of hardware in our hands. Keyboard, mouse, touchscreen. But now for the first time, if there's a microphone in a room, you can talk to a computer. And so instead of us having to learn the skills to interface with a computer, it's flipped around. The computers are adapting to the way that we naturally communicate. And because of that, I think more and more we're going to see a world of ambient computing